Welcome back to Talk Tensors, the show where we break down those complex academic papers
Yeah.
and try to extract all the juicy insight.
The good stuff.
Today we're doing a deep dive into a general framework for inference time scaling and steering of diffusion models.
Ooh.
And let me tell you, this paper is a potential game changer.
It is. It really is. It tackles kind of a really fundamental problem that we have with diffusion models, which is that they're amazing at generating things, but they are notoriously difficult to control.
Yeah, like you have this incredible race car, but there's no steering wheel.
Right.
So you can go fast, but
Who knows where you're going to end up?
exactly.
Exactly.
So what is the current solution? Like,
Yeah.
how are people dealing with this problem of trying to control these models?
Yeah, so the main approach currently is fine-tuning. So basically you retrain the entire model for each task,
Okay.
which is very time-consuming and expensive.
So every time you want to make a little change to your prompt on Dall-E, you have to send it back to AI school
Yeah.
to relearn everything.
Pretty much.
Yeah, not very efficient.
Not at all. And that's where this new technique, Feynman Cuck Steering, comes in. It allows you to control the model's output at inference time.
Okay.
So no retraining necessary.
So it's like we finally got the steering wheel
Exactly.
for our race car.
Yes.
How does this magic steering wheel work?
Huh.
I will admit that some of the equations in this paper went way over my head.
Yeah, no worries. We can skip the heavy math.
Okay.
It's actually a very intuitive idea. So imagine you have like a bunch of artists and they're all given the same basic instructions, but each one is going to create a slightly different version of the same image.
Okay.
These are our particles in the Feynman Cuck framework.
So we were running like multiple different instances of the diffusion model,
Yeah, multiple diffusion processes running in parallel.
all exploring different kind of creative pathways.
Exactly.
Okay, I'm with you so far.
Now imagine we have like an art director and he's walking around evaluating each artist's work based on like how well it meets certain criteria. That's our reward function. I see. So the higher the score, the better the artwork is doing.
Okay, so we're constantly evaluating these particles as they're evolving.
Right.
But how does that actually change what the model ultimately puts out?
So this is the clever part. The artworks with the highest scores, they're essentially duplicated and they replace the ones that are not doing as well. And this resampling process guides the model towards those outputs that best satisfy the reward function.
So survival of the fittest,
Exactly.
but for AI art.
Only the most promising creations get to evolve further.
I love it.
And because we're doing this at each step of the generation process,
Yeah.
we're constantly nudging the model in the right direction.
Okay.
We're avoiding all those like creative dead ends.
So no more expensive retraining, just real-time control.
Yep.
That sounds like a huge win for anybody who's using these diffusion models.
Absolutely. This paper isn't just for researchers. It has like real world implications.
Right.
So imagine you're using Dall-E to generate images for your website. With Feynman Cuck Steering, you could tweak your prompts and get perfectly aligned results instantly.
That would be amazing.
No more waiting for the model to like relearn everything.
Right. That would be a game changer.
Huge game changer for creative workflows.
But the paper also highlights that it's not just limited to these like simple image prompts.
Right.
You can use any kind of reward function, even ones that are like really hard to define mathematically.
Yeah, this is where it gets really exciting. You could steer the model based on things that we can't easily put into equations like aesthetics
Yeah.
or fairness or emotional tone, things that were previously kind of off limits for diffusion models.
So we can start to incorporate subjective qualities
Right.
into this generation process.
Exactly.
That opens up a whole nother can of worms.
It does. And to show the potential, the researchers put this framework to the test. So they applied it to both image and text generation with some pretty impressive results.
You mean like generating the image of the purple elephant riding a unicycle on the moon?
Exactly. So they showed that Feynman Cuck Steering could handle these very specific, kind of surreal concepts and produce images that match those descriptions really well.
And they didn't just mess around with images.
No,
They also applied it to text generation
they did.
with some really, really cool results as well.
Yeah, they found that a smaller steered model could actually outperform a much larger fine-tuned model in terms of like accurately reflecting the prompt. So it's a case of less is more.
So smaller models, more control.
Yeah.
And this ability to steer based on all sorts of criteria,
Yes.
this Feynman Cuck steering seems like it has all the bases covered. What are some of the other interesting details we should highlight from the paper?
One thing that stood out to me was how they connect this new technique to existing particle-based methods, like the twisted diffusion sampler
If you guess.
or TDS, right? Turns out those are just specific cases of this broader Feynman-Cuck framework.
So it's not just some brand new idea, it's building on existing research.
Exactly. And I think that's important because it shows how this field is evolving. Yeah.
And how researchers are constantly finding new ways to improve and control these models.
So they've kind of taken all these existing tools and combined them into this like superpowered toolkit for diffusion model control.
Yeah, and like any good toolkit, it comes with a variety of options. So the paper explores different choices for potentials, that's how you score those particles,
Yeah.
different reward functions, and even different types of samplers.
Okay, so a lot of flexibility in how you actually implement this framework,
Exactly.
which is great for researchers. But before we get too lost in the technical weeds, I want to take a step back and think about the bigger picture here. You know, this paper is about more than just technical advancements. It's about pushing the boundaries of AI creativity and control
I completely agree.
and making these models more responsive to human needs and intentions.
Yeah, it's about bridging the gap between what we can imagine and what AI can create. Exactly, and that's what makes this research so exciting. It's not just an incremental improvement, it's a fundamental shift in how we think about interacting with and controlling these powerful tools.
A step towards a future where AI isn't just generating content, but collaborating with us to bring our creative visions to life.
And to understand how we got to this point, I think it would be helpful to take a little detour into the history of diffusion models themselves.
Sure.
Because this new technique is really built on decades of research in this field.
Absolutely. Diffusion models have a fascinating history, and their rise to prominence has been nothing short of remarkable. And their story actually begins with a very counterintuitive idea. To generate something new, you first need to destroy something old.
Okay, that sounds a little dramatic. What do you mean by destroy?
So imagine you have a perfectly clear image. A diffusion model starts by gradually adding noise to that image,
Okay.
essentially corrupting it until it becomes pure noise.
So it's like taking a beautiful painting and slowly turning it into a chaotic mess of pixels.
Exactly. But here's the genius part. The model is then trained to reverse this process.
Okay.
It learns to take that pure noise and gradually denoise it step by step until it reconstructs the original image.
So it's like you're teaching the model to clean up its room by first making it a complete and utter mess.
Kind of.
But why go through all that trouble? Why not just train it to generate the image directly?
That's a great question. It turns out that this process of destruction and reconstruction has some surprising advantages. For one, it allows the model to learn a very rich and detailed representation of the data. By understanding how noise affects the image at every stage, it gains a deep understanding of the underlying structure and patterns.
So by learning to undo the noise, it's actually learning the essence of what makes an image an image.
Exactly, and that deep understanding allows it to generate incredibly realistic and diverse images from scratch. It's like the model has learned the fundamental building blocks of image creation, and now it can use them to build anything it wants.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
And this approach wasn't just limited to images.
Diffusion models have been successfully applied to all sorts of data, from text to audio to even protein structures.
Wow.
They've become like a real powerhouse in the world of machine learning.
It's amazing to think that this seemingly simple idea of adding and removing noise has led to this revolution in generative AI.
It is.
But as we discussed, controlling that creative power has been a major challenge.
It has.
And that's where this research on Feynman Cuck Steering comes in.
Right.
It's the latest chapter in this ongoing story of humans trying to tame the wild creativity of AI.
And it's a chapter that's filled with potential and intrigue.
So we've given the AI the paintbrush, and now we're figuring out how to actually guide its hand to shape its artistic expression.
And that ability to shape AI creativity is opening up exciting new possibilities in fields like art, design, storytelling, and even scientific discovery. Before we dive into those novel notions, all those wild and speculative ideas that this research has sparked, let's take a quick break. We'll be back in a moment to explore what the future might hold for Feynman Cuck Steering and the amazing world of diffusion models.
Welcome back to Talk Tensors.
We just did a deep dive into the history of diffusion models.
Yeah.
And saw how this new technique, Feynman Cuck Steering, is really giving us this unprecedented control over their output.
Yeah.
And while we've touched on some of the cool applications, generating these wild images from really specific prompts, I think we're really just scratching the surface of what's possible here.
Right.
And before we jump into those novel notions,
Fun stuff.
all the speculative but, really intriguing ideas that this has sparked, I think it's important to highlight something from the paper that I think is really crucial, and that is that Feynman Cuck Steering, it's not just about making pretty pictures or writing catchy poems.
Right.
It also has some pretty profound implications for AI safety.
That's a really good point. Yeah, it's easy to get caught up in the excitement of these new capabilities, but we also need to be mindful of the potential downsides as well.
You're absolutely right. I mean, think about it. If someone can steer a diffusion model towards generating, toxic text or harmful imagery,
Yeah,
that's a serious concern.
it's true. I mean, we've seen how effective these models are at generating photorealistic images and text that's practically indistinguishable from human-created content.
Yeah.
Imagine that power in the wrong hands.
It's scary. It's like we could see a surge in really convincing disinformation or deepfakes that could erode trust in everything we see and hear online.
Exactly. And it's not just about those obvious harms either.
Right.
Imagine using this technique to generate biased or discriminatory content, tailored to exploit specific vulnerabilities in individuals or groups.
That's a really chilling scenario, and it
Right.
really underscores, I think, the importance of responsible AI development.
Right.
The need to think about these ethical implications from the very beginning.
Not as an afterthought, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But it's not all doom and gloom.
Right.
This research also provides us with tools to actually combat some of these threats.
Exactly.
One of the advantages of Feynman Cuck Steering is it allows us to actually guide the models away from harmful content, even with reward functions that are hard to define mathematically.
Yeah, it's like training a guard dog
Okay.
for your AI system that's constantly sniffing out and neutralizing potential threats before they can cause harm.
I love that analogy.
So instead of just like hoping for the best,
Right.
we can actively steer these models toward generating content that aligns with our values.
Exactly. And that's a really powerful capability, especially as AI systems are becoming more and more integrated into our lives.
Absolutely.
But yeah, finding that balance between creative freedom and responsible use, I
Yeah.
think it's going to be an ongoing challenge.
I think it's a challenge that requires collaboration between researchers, developers, policymakers, and the public. We need to have these open and honest conversations about the potential benefits and risks of these technologies.
Couldn't agree more. And those conversations need to happen now.
Right.
While these technologies are still in their early stages of development,
Absolutely.
we have this opportunity to really shape the future of AI in a way that benefits all of humanity.
Well said.
But with that serious note in mind, let's shift gears a little bit and get back to those novel notions, those speculative ideas that this research has sparked.
Yeah.
And we were just starting to explore the possibilities of interactive fiction powered by Feynman Cuck Steering.
Yeah, that's a concept I'm particularly excited about. Imagine a world where stories aren't static.
Yeah.
They adapt and evolve in real time based on the reader's choices.
Yeah, I'm still trying to wrap my head around how that would actually work.
Right.
It sounds like something straight out of science fiction.
It might sound far-fetched,
Yeah.
but the underlying principles are already there.
Yeah.
We have these diffusion models that are capable of generating incredibly complex and nuanced narratives.
Yeah.
And with Feynman Cuck Steering, we can control those narratives in ways that we never thought possible before.
So instead of being limited to these pre-scripted storylines, you could have AI-generated stories that actually feel immersion and interactive.
Exactly like a choose-your-own-adventure book on steroids.
Yeah.
Imagine reading a novel where your choices determine not just the next chapter, but the entire course of the story.
Wow.
The characters' fates, even the world itself.
It would be like stepping into a living, breathing story.
Right.
Where you are the author, co-creating the narrative alongside the AI.
And think about the possibilities for video games.
Oh, yeah.
Imagine these open-world games where the environment and the characters respond dynamically to your actions,
Yeah.
driven by an AI that's constantly adapting and evolving the story based on your choices.
But to be blurring the lines between storytelling,
Right.
gaming,
And artificial intelligence.
creating these truly immersive and personalized experiences.
Exactly. And it's not just about entertainment either.
Right.
Imagine interactive textbooks
Oh.
that adapt to the student's learning style and pace, or historical simulations that let you explore different what-if scenarios and see how small choices could have altered the course of history.
Wow. The potential is mind-boggling.
We could even have personalized news articles
Okay.
that present multiple perspectives on a story and allow you to kind of choose which narrative threads you want to follow. and form your own
It
conclusions.
really is mind-boggling.
The applications are endless.
But let's not get too carried away with our enthusiasm.
Right.
There are bound to be some challenges
Sure.
in implementing something as complex as this particle-driven storytelling.
Of course.
I mean, one of the biggest hurdles, I think, would be finding a way to translate a reader's choices
Right.
into meaningful manipulations of those particles
Right.
within the model.
We need a robust system for understanding the intent behind those choices and translating them into appropriate reward signals.
So we're not just talking about simple yes or no choices here.
No.
We're talking about a system that can actually understand nuanced preferences and intentions and then use that information to steer the narrative.
In a way that feels natural and compelling.
Yeah, exactly.
That's where things get tricky.
Right.
It's not just about throwing more computing power at the problem.
Yeah.
We need to develop new algorithms and techniques
Oh,
for capturing the essence of human storytelling and translating it into a language that AI can understand.
so it's like we're trying to teach the AI to be like a master storyteller,
Right.
not just this mindless generator of text.
Imbue it with a sense of narrative structure, character development, emotional intelligence.
That's a tall order, but I think it's achievable.
I think so too.
We're already seeing so much progress in
Yeah.
areas like natural language processing
Yeah.
and reinforcement learning.
And as those technologies continue to evolve,
Yeah.
this possibility of creating these truly interactive and particle-driven narratives seems less like science fiction and more like an inevitability.
It's a really exciting prospect.
Yeah.
But for now, let's shift gears and explore another novel notion that's even more mind-bending, and that is using Feynman Cuck Steering to actually guide the evolution of AI itself.
Now you're talking. This is where we really start to push the boundaries of what's possible. So imagine creating a system that uses particles to represent different possible paths for AI development.
Right.
Each particle embodying a different set of values, goals, learning strategies.
Hold on. So you're suggesting that we use this technique to actually steer the development of artificial intelligence?
Kind of, yeah.
That sounds incredibly ambitious and a little terrifying, to be honest.
It's definitely a bold idea.
Yeah.
But think about the implications. We could create this kind of evolutionary playground for AI where different approaches compete and collaborate. And the fittest ones, the ones that best align with our goals and values, survive and thrive.
So instead of just letting AI develop on its own, we could actively guide its evolution,
Exactly.
nudging it towards outcomes that are beneficial for humanity.
Right. We could define reward functions that encourage the development of AI systems that are creative, compassionate, collaborative.
Okay.
We could steer AI away from those dystopian scenarios that often dominate science fiction.
It sounds like we'd be playing God with artificial intelligence.
It's a huge responsibility and one that we should approach with extreme caution.
Yeah.
But the potential rewards are immense. If we can successfully steer AI evolution towards a positive outcome, it could be one of the greatest achievements in human history.
It's a vision that's both inspiring and daunting.
I agree.
And it raises a whole host of ethical questions.
For sure.
Who gets to decide what those reward functions are?
Right.
How do we ensure that this process doesn't lead to unintended consequences?
Yeah.
How do we prevent bias from creeping into the system and shaping AI in our own flawed image?
These are all really important questions that we need to grapple with. And they're questions that require input from not just computer scientists, but philosophers, ethicists, social scientists, the public at large.
Yeah, we can't just leave these decisions to like a small group of technologists.
Exactly.
You're absolutely right. The future of AI is way too important to be left to chance
Right.
or to the whims of a select few.
I agree.
But with all of these risks and rewards in mind, I'm curious to hear what other novel notions you've come up with.
Yeah.
Do you have any more mind benders to share before we wrap up this part of the episode? Welcome back to Talk Tensors, where we explore the cutting edge of AI research.
We've been diving deep into this fascinating paper on Feynman Cuck steering for diffusion models.
A technique that offers us this like remarkable control over AI's creative output,
Right.
but also raises some really profound questions about responsibility and ethics.
Yeah, we've journeyed from the technical details of how these particles are manipulated to these really exciting possibilities like interactive storytelling and even guiding the evolution of AI itself.
But before we wrap up this deep dive,
Mm-hmm.
I think we need to address the elephant in the room.
The potential for misuse.
Yeah, this power to steer AI, It's not a neutral tool.
Right.
It can be used for good or for ill.
And like any powerful technology,
Right.
we need to be mindful of the potential consequences.
So imagine a world where these AI steering techniques are widely available,
Okay.
accessible not just to researchers and developers, but to anyone with an internet connection.
It's a world full of possibilities, but also a lot of dangers.
Governments could use these techniques to control the flow of information, shaping public opinion through carefully curated AI-generated content.
Corporations could manipulate consumer behavior using AI to generate hyper-personalized advertising
Right.
that exploits our deepest desires and insecurities.
Individuals with malicious intent could spread propaganda and disinformation, creating deepfakes that sow discord and undermine trust in institutions.
The potential for abuse is vast, and we need to be prepared for it.
And one of the most pressing concerns, I think, is bias.
Yeah.
If the reward functions that we're using to steer these models are themselves biased, reflecting the prejudices and assumptions of their creators.
Yeah, then the resulting AI outputs will just inherit those biases,
Got it.
amplifying them on a massive scale.
So imagine a system that's designed to generate news articles that are engaging and shareable,
Okay.
but it's trained on a data set of sensationalized or biased articles.
Right. The system might learn to prioritize those same harmful qualities, generating content that's designed to grab attention,
Yeah.
regardless of its factual accuracy or ethical implications.
And if those biased articles are then spread through social media algorithms that are prioritizing engagement over truth,
Exactly.
we could see a dramatic rise in misinformation, a decline in trust in reliable sources, and a fragmentation of our shared reality.
It's a dystopian scenario, but one that's all too plausible if we don't address these ethical challenges.
Absolutely.
Huh.
Another concern is this potential for concentration of power.
Right.
If only a few companies or governments control these AI steering techniques,
Yeah.
it could create a really dangerous imbalance.
Right. Giving those in power unprecedented control over the information landscape.
Imagine a world where only the wealthy or the powerful have access to these AI systems
Right.
that can generate personalized propaganda tailored to exploit individual vulnerabilities and manipulate beliefs.
It would be a nightmare for democracy and freedom of expression.
A world where truth is drowned out by this cacophony of AI-generated noise.
So what can we do to mitigate these risks? How do we ensure that this powerful technology is used for good, not for harm?
It's a complex challenge, but I don't think it's an insurmountable one.
No, I agree.
I think we need a multi-pronged approach that combines technical safeguards with ethical guidelines and public education.
Yeah, on the technical front, we need to develop systems that can detect and flag biased or harmful AI outputs,
Right.
providing transparency into how these models are being used
Yeah.
and what data they're being trained on.
And we also need to explore ways to make these steering techniques more robust, more resistant to manipulation, ensuring that they can't be easily hijacked for malicious purposes.
Yeah, but technology alone isn't enough. We
Well-
need to foster a culture of responsible AI development,
Right.
one that prioritizes ethical considerations alongside technical advancements.
So establishing clear guidelines for the use of these technologies, promoting transparency and accountability among developers and researchers, and really engaging the public in open and honest conversations about the potential benefits and risks of AI.
It's a call for collective action,
Yeah.
a recognition that the future of AI is not something that should be left to chance.
Or to the whims of a select few.
Exactly.
We need to work together to ensure that this powerful technology is used to build a better world.
One that's more just
More equitable.
and more aligned with our shared values.
That's a message worth amplifying.
I agree.
And on that note, it's time to wrap up this episode of Talk Tensors.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground, from the technical marvels of Feynman Cuck Steering to the ethical complexities of AI's growing influence.
We explored the potential for this technology to revolutionize creative fields, to enhance our understanding of the world, and even reshape the very fabric of our reality.
But we've also acknowledged the risks, the potential for misuse, the need for vigilance and responsibility.
The future of AI is still being written, and we all have a chance to shape that future in a way that benefits all of humanity.
I hope we seize that opportunity.
Well, thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of Feynman Cuck Steering and diffusion models.
Until next time, keep those imaginations firing and those critical thinking caps on.
And remember, the future of AI is in our hands.